The quiet Arizona neighborhood woke slowly, wrapped in the soft glow of early sunlight. Birds chirped from rooftops, sprinklers clicked rhythmically across green lawns, and the golden light of dawn stretched across the peaceful street. For most residents, it was just another ordinary day. Neighbors stepped outside in pajamas to collect newspapers. A few early risers sipped coffee on their porches, enjoying the calm before work and school would begin. No one suspected that within minutes, the quiet street would turn into the center of an unforgettable spectacle. And that spectacle would unfold in front of the house, belonging to one of reality television's most controversial figures, the home of Kody Brown. For years, this house had been associated with drama, fame, and the complicated life portrayed on the hit reality show Sister Wives. Many locals knew exactly who lived there. Some had seen camera crews filming outside. Others had watched the show themselves. But even those familiar with the Brown family's constant drama had no idea what was about to happen. Then the sound came. At first it was faint. A deep mechanical rumble echoed from a few blocks away. The sound grew louder. Heavy. Industrial. Unmistakable. A tow truck. The massive vehicle slowly rolled through the quiet neighborhood, its diesel engine growling as it turned onto the street where Kody Brown lived. A few curious neighbors looked up. Tow trucks weren't common in this peaceful neighborhood. And when the truck slowed down, people noticed something even stranger. It stopped directly in front of Kody Brown's house. Immediately, curiosity spread. Curtains shifted behind windows. A garage door halfway down the street paused mid-opening. Two neighbors stepped outside to get a better look. The truck driver shut off the engine and climbed down from the cab. But he wasn't alone. Two other individuals stepped out of the passenger side. They wore dark jackets with official insignias stitched on the chest. Bank repossession officers. Now people were paying attention. One woman across the street quietly whispered to her husband, "Is that what I think it is?" Her husband squinted toward the driveway. Parked in front of the house, gleaming under the morning sun, was a vehicle many locals recognized. It wasn't just a car. It was Kody Brown's car. And Kody loved that car. Anyone who had watched the show or lived nearby had seen him driving it around town. The vehicle was polished so often it looked almost new. To Kody, it wasn't just transportation. It was a statement, a symbol, power, status, control. And now the bank officials were walking straight toward it. The street fell silent. One of the officers held a clipboard, flipping through documents as he approached the vehicle. The other pulled something from a bag slung over his shoulder. A bright roll of fluorescent stickers. Even from across the street, neighbors could read the bold red text. Bank property seized. The first sticker was slapped onto the driver's side window. The sound echoed sharply in the still morning air. Smack. A second sticker went across the windshield. Then another across the trunk. Each one stuck firmly to the glossy paint like a stamp of finality. One neighbor gasped quietly. "No way," another neighbor muttered under his breath. "Is Kody getting his car repossessed?" Phones began appearing everywhere. Someone opened their camera app. Another neighbor began recording video. Within seconds, the quiet suburban street had turned into an impromptu audience. And inside the house, Kody Brown had no idea. Not yet. Outside, the tow truck driver crouched beside the car and began attaching heavy chains to the wheels. Metal clinked against metal. The harsh sound carried across the street. Each clink echoed like a countdown. The bank officer double-checked his paperwork. Then he nodded to the driver. The hydraulic lift on the tow truck began to move. Slowly, mechanically. The platform lowered toward the ground. And that's when the front door of the house suddenly burst open. Kody Brown stormed outside. His hair was messy. His face was flushed. And the moment he saw what was happening in his driveway, he exploded. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" His voice rang across the street. Neighbors froze. Phones tilted to capture every second. Kody marched toward the tow truck, pointing angrily at the officers. "That's my car. You can't touch that." The bank officer didn't react. He had clearly dealt with situations like this before. Calmly, he raised the clipboard. "Sir, this vehicle is being repossessed by order of the bank." Multiple notices were sent regarding missed payments. Kody stared at him in disbelief. No, that's a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll call someone. But the tow truck driver had already begun the lift. The front wheels of the car slowly rose from the ground. The sound of the hydraulics hissed loudly. Kody's voice cracked as panic replaced anger. You can't take that car. Across the street, neighbors whispered. He didn't pay his loan? Looks like it. Another neighbor quietly laughed. For a guy who always acts like he's in charge, someone else murmured the thought everyone was thinking. Guess the sister wife's paycheck isn't enough anymore. Inside the house, another voice suddenly called out. Kody! It was Robyn. She appeared in the doorway, looking terrified. Stop yelling. You're making this worse. But Kody wasn't listening. His pride had taken over. He stepped closer to the officers, jabbing his finger toward the car. Do you even know who I am? The officer didn't blink. Yes, sir. He paused briefly. But that doesn't change the paperwork. The words landed like a hammer. Because in that moment, the truth became unavoidable. To the bank. Kody Brown wasn't a TV personality. He wasn't the head of a famous polygamist family. He was simply a customer who hadn't paid his loan. The tow truck continued lifting the car. Neighbors stepped farther out of their homes now. Some stood barefoot on driveways. Others leaned against mailboxes. Everyone was watching. Phones recording. A public spectacle. Kody's car, his prized possession, hung in the air like a captured trophy. The driver secured the chains, then climbed back into the truck. With a loud rumble, the engine started again. Kody shouted one last time, I'll fix this. But the truck had already begun moving. The car bounced slightly as it rolled forward. And then, it was gone, slowly disappearing down the street, leaving behind silence. Kody stood frozen in the driveway, his fists clenched, his chest rising and falling as he struggled to process what had just happened. For years, he had presented himself as the strong one, the provider, the man in control. But that morning, standing powerless as his car disappeared around the corner, that image shattered. And the neighbors had seen everything. Even worse. So would the internet. Because the videos were already being uploaded. And within hours, millions of people would watch the moment Kody Brown lost far more than just a car. He lost control of the story. The tow truck had barely turned the corner when the second wave of humiliation began. And this one would travel far beyond the quiet streets of Flagstaff. Kody Brown still stood in his driveway, staring down the road where his car had disappeared. The rumble of the truck's engine faded into the distance, leaving behind an uncomfortable silence. Neighbors slowly began drifting back toward their homes. But they didn't go back inside empty-handed. They carried their phones. And inside those phones were videos. Videos of Kody yelling. Videos of the tow truck lifting the car. Videos of the bright red bank property seized, stickers plastered across the windshield. One neighbor, a woman who had filmed the entire scene from across the street, stood in her kitchen and replayed the clip. 40 seconds. That was all it took. 40 seconds of real-life drama. She hesitated only for a moment before opening her social media app. Her caption was simple. When reality TV becomes real reality. Kody Brown's car just got repossessed. She tapped post. At first, the video reached only a handful of people. A few friends. A few local followers. But one of them recognized the name instantly. Kody Brown. The patriarch from Sister Wives. Within minutes, the video was shared again. And again. And again. By the time the woman finished pouring herself another cup of coffee, the clip had already been viewed hundreds of times. By the time she sat down at her kitchen table, the number had jumped to thousands. And by lunchtime, it had exploded into the millions. Across TikTok, the videos spread like wildfire. Short clips of the moment began circulating everywhere. Kody shouting in anger. The tow truck lifting the car. Neighbors whispering in the background. One viral version slowed down the moment when the officer calmly said, "Sir, this vehicle is not yours anymore." The caption read, "Reality check delivered by tow truck." On Instagram, the clip turned into a reel with dramatic music layered underneath. On Twitter, users turned the moment into a trending topic. Within hours, one hashtag began appearing everywhere. Hashtag Kody Car Repo. The internet had found its newest spectacle. And the jokes came quickly. One tweet read, "Imagine yelling at a tow truck driver like he's one of your sister wives." Another said, "Kody Brown, I'm the man in control." The bank, actually, no. Memes flooded social media. One viral image showed Kody chasing a toy car down the street like a child. Another edited the tow truck driver to look like one of Kody's ex-wives smiling behind the wheel. But the most brutal meme of all quickly went viral. It was a split-screen image. On one side was Christine, smiling happily in photos with her new husband. On the other side was Kody, red-faced and screaming as the tow truck lifted his car. The caption read, "Her upgrade versus his downgrade." The internet loved it. Fans of sister wives gathered in online communities to discuss the video. On Reddit, threads exploded with comments. One user wrote, "First the wives leave. Now the car leaves too." Another posted, "I've watched this show for 10 years, and this might be the most honest moment we've ever seen." Speculation spread rapidly. Was this the beginning of a bigger financial collapse? Was Kody secretly drowning in debt? Had the lifestyle he projected on television always been an illusion? The questions kept coming. Some fans even began analyzing the footage like detectives. They zoomed in on the vehicle. They tried identifying the exact model. They debated how expensive the loan payments must have been. Others focused on Kody's reaction. "You can tell he had no idea this was coming," one viewer wrote. Another replied, "No. You don't get repossessed without warnings." He knew. The debates raged across thousands of comments. But while most people were laughing, a few viewers felt uncomfortable. One comment gained attention for a different reason. It read, "This isn't funny. His kids are going to see this." Another user agreed, "It's just a car." Public humiliation like this is rough for anyone. But those voices were drowned out by the overwhelming wave of mockery. Because the internet thrives on spectacle, and Kody Brown had just delivered one of the biggest spectacles of the week. Meanwhile, the story was already spreading beyond social media. Entertainment blogs began picking up the video. Headlines appeared across gossip websites. Sister Wives star Kody Brown's car repossessed in front of neighbors. Reality TV patriarch loses car in public meltdown. Television entertainment shows soon followed. Clips of the tow truck scene played on screen while commentators discussed the moment. Some hosts laughed. Others shook their heads. But everyone agreed on one thing. The footage was shocking. Because it didn't look like reality television anymore. It looked like real life falling apart. Back in Flagstaff, Kody had no idea how fast the story was spreading. Inside the house, the atmosphere had turned heavy. Robyn sat at the kitchen table, staring at her phone. She had already seen the video. She had already seen the comments. And every refresh revealed more. More views. More shares. More jokes. Her hands trembled slightly. "This is everywhere," she whispered. Across the room, Kody paced like a trapped animal. He had been calling people nonstop. Friends. Contacts. Anyone who might help him make the videos disappear. But the internet doesn't work that way. Once something spreads online, it rarely disappears. And every attempt to fight it only fuels the fire. At one point, Kody opened his own social media account. The notifications were overwhelming. Thousands of comments. Many of them brutal. One read, "Need a ride, Kody?" Another said, "Maybe try paying your bills instead of yelling." Kody responded angrily to several comments. But that only made things worse. Screenshots of his replies began circulating. People mocked them, shared them, turned them into even more memes. The situation was spiraling out of control. And somewhere else in the country, 3 women were also watching the drama unfold. Women who once shared a life with Kody Brown. Christine saw the video first. She didn't comment immediately. Instead, she posted something subtle on her Instagram story. A simple quote. "Sometimes life takes away the things you cling to so you can see what really matters." Fans connected the dots instantly. Within minutes, Screenshots of her post spread alongside the viral tow truck clip. Janelle posted something too, but her message was even more direct. Responsibility always catches up eventually. Mary remained cryptic as usual. Her post simply read, "Truth reveals itself eventually." Each message added fuel to the fire. Fans began sharing the posts next to the viral video. The narrative was growing larger by the hour. What started as a neighborhood incident was now becoming a national story. And through it all, Robyn remained silent. No posts, no comments, no responses. People close to the family would later say she spent most of the day crying. Not because of the car, but because of the humiliation. Because she knew something Kody didn't fully understand yet. This moment wasn't just embarrassing. It was permanent. The internet never forgets. And by nightfall, millions of people had already seen the video. Millions had laughed. Millions had formed opinions. For Kody Brown, the man who once invited television cameras into his life, the cameras were now everywhere. And this time, he wasn't in control of the story. While the internet laughed and shared memes, the real story behind the repossession was far more complicated. Because that tow truck hadn't just appeared out of nowhere. It was the final step in a chain of financial problems that had been building quietly for years. To understand how Kody Brown ended up watching his car disappear down the street, you have to go back to a very different time in his life. A time when the Brown family still looked strong. A time when 4 wives, 18 children, and a hit television show made it seem like everything was working. Back then, Kody loved presenting himself as the leader of a unique and thriving household. On television, he often spoke about being the provider, the patriarch, the man responsible for keeping the entire family functioning. And to be fair, the responsibility really was enormous. For households, 18 children, multiple mortgages, school tuition, medical bills, groceries, car payments, insurance, utilities. Even for a wealthy family, the math would have been challenging. But the Browns weren't nearly as wealthy as many viewers believed. Yes, the show brought in money. Reality television can be lucrative. But the income wasn't endless. And more importantly, that income had to stretch across multiple households and dozens of expenses. The show might have made millions for the network. But Kody's personal share was much smaller than fans imagined. Once divided between several adults and used to support such a large family, the money disappeared quickly. Yet the lifestyle kept growing. New homes, new moves, new plans. One of the most expensive decisions came when the family relocated to Flagstaff, Arizona. The move itself was costly. Selling homes, buying new property, relocating multiple families across states. But the biggest gamble of all came shortly after. Kody had a vision. A massive piece of land outside Flagstaff known as Coyote Pass. To Kody, the land represented the future. A place where the entire family could eventually live together. Several homes. One property. A symbol of unity. At least, that was the dream. The reality was much more complicated. The land was expensive. The taxes alone were enormous. And despite years of discussion, construction never truly began. The property sat there, unfinished, undeveloped. But the bills kept arriving. Property taxes, legal fees, maintenance costs. All of it added pressure to the family finances. Meanwhile, cracks were beginning to appear in the relationships themselves. Christine had grown increasingly unhappy. Janelle had begun questioning the lifestyle. Mary had already drifted emotionally away. Each shift in the family structure created new financial uncertainty. Who was responsible for which bills? Which household paid what? The system that once worked, however imperfectly, was beginning to fall apart. And Kody wasn't adjusting fast enough. During this period, he made another decision. One that seemed harmless at the time. He bought a car. Not just any car. A car that made a statement. Shiny. Expensive. The kind of vehicle someone buys when they want the world to see success. When Kody drove that car around Flagstaff, it carried a message. I'm still in control. But behind the scenes, the purchase came with a heavy loan. The monthly payments were steep. Still, Kody convinced himself it would be manageable. After all, the show was still running. More seasons meant more money. At least, that was the assumption. But reality television income isn't always stable. Contracts change. Ratings fluctuate. Networks renegotiate. And meanwhile, the Brown family's personal life was unraveling. Christine left the marriage. That alone changed the financial picture dramatically. Then Janelle separated. Soon, Mary officially distanced herself as well. Suddenly, the family structure that once supported multiple households was fragmented. The financial responsibilities became confusing. Some bills were reassigned. Others fell through the cracks. And the car payment? That began slipping. At first, it was just a late payment. Banks see that all the time. A reminder letter was sent. Nothing too serious. But then another payment was missed. And another. The tone of the letters changed. What had once been polite reminders turned into firm warnings. The envelopes began arriving with red stamps across the front. Payment overdue still, nothing changed. Perhaps Kody believed the situation would resolve itself. Maybe he thought another television contract would cover the debt. Maybe he hoped to refinance. Or maybe he simply didn't want to face the reality that the financial situation was slipping out of control. Neighbors later said they often saw him driving the car around town like nothing was wrong. Music playing. Windows down. Sunglasses on. From the outside, he looked confident. Untouchable. But the bank's patience was running out. Behind the scenes, the paperwork was escalating. Missed payment notices. Default warnings. Final demands. And eventually, the document that sealed the car's fate. A repossession authorization. Signed. Stamped. Official. At that point, the vehicle no longer legally belonged to Kody. It belonged to the bank. From their perspective, it wasn't personal. It was procedure. Another account in default. Another asset to recover. The repossession team received the order. They reviewed the file. They confirmed the location. And they scheduled the pickup, which led directly to that quiet morning in Flagstaff. The morning when the tow truck arrived. But what made the situation even more painful for Kody was the symbolism. That car had meant something to him. It had become part of his identity. When his relationships were falling apart, the car remained a constant. When critics attacked him online, he still had the car. When wives left the marriage, he still drove that car. It represented stability, control, masculinity. Now that symbol was gone. Not quietly, not privately, but in front of neighbors, in front of cameras, and eventually, in front of the entire internet. For many viewers watching the viral video, the moment seemed like simple karma. But the truth was more complicated, because the repossession wasn't just about a car. It was a warning. If one loan had collapsed, people began asking an obvious question. What else might be falling apart? The property at Coyote Pass, the mortgages, the credit accounts, the business ventures. Fans began speculating online. Some predicted more financial problems were coming. Others wondered if the family's entire empire might be at risk. And while the internet debated, Kody sat in his house facing a reality he had avoided for too long. The tow truck had taken the car. But the bigger problem remained. Debt. And once debt begins collapsing, it rarely stops with just one loss. By the time evening arrived in Flagstaff, the world already knew. The video had traveled across the internet faster than anyone in the Brown household could comprehend. What had started as a quiet neighborhood incident had turned into a national conversation. Millions had seen it. Millions had formed opinions. And inside the Brown family circle, reactions were beginning to ripple outward. For some, the moment felt almost surreal. For others, it felt like confirmation of things they had suspected for years. Christine was among the first to hear about the incident. At the time, she was living far from the chaos of the old family dynamic, building a new life that looked very different from the one she had shared with Kody. Her days had grown quieter, simpler, less complicated. But when a friend sent her the viral clip, curiosity got the better of her. She watched it once, then again. The scene was impossible to ignore. There was Kody in the driveway, shouting at the officers. There was the tow truck lifting the car. And there were neighbors filming everything like spectators at an unexpected reality show. Christine didn't comment publicly at first. Instead, she sat quietly for a while, thinking about the long road that had brought the family to this moment. Years of arguments. Years of tension. Years of emotional distance. Eventually, she opened her phone and posted something small. A short quote on her social media story. It read, "Sometimes the things we cling to the hardest are the first things life takes away." No names. No direct reference. But fans immediately connected the dots. Screenshots of her post began circulating alongside the viral tow truck video. People interpreted it as a subtle message. A quiet reflection on the past. Janelle's reaction came not long after. Unlike Christine, Janelle had always been more practical in her approach to problems. Numbers. Budgets. Planning. Those were the things she often talked about during the years the family lived together. When she saw the video, her reaction was less emotional and more analytical. She understood something the internet didn't immediately recognize. Repossession doesn't happen overnight. It takes missed payments, warning letters, months of unresolved issues. So when she posted her own message, it carried a slightly sharper edge. Her post read, "Responsibility eventually catches up with everyone." Fans quickly shared the message across discussion forums. Many saw it as a direct response to the viral moment. Others believed it reflected years of frustration that had finally reached the surface. Meanwhile, Mary, who had long since distanced herself emotionally from the chaos, responded in a much more cryptic way. Her post appeared hours later. Just a single sentence. "Truth always finds its way into the light." Like the others, she never mentioned Kody or the car directly. But that didn't stop fans from drawing their own conclusions. Within hours, online communities were analyzing every word. Some viewers believed the posts were subtle forms of closure. Others believed they were quiet forms of vindication. But while the former wives were speaking in calm, measured ways, inside the Flagstaff house, things felt very different. Robyn had been watching the situation unfold all day. Her phone had become impossible to ignore. Every notification seemed to bring another link, another article, another viral clip. She opened one video and immediately wished she hadn't. The comments were brutal. Thousands of strangers mocking the moment. Thousands more making jokes about the family. Some comments were lighthearted. Others were cruel. Robyn placed the phone down on the kitchen table and covered her face with her hands. This wasn't just about a car. It was about humiliation. And she knew the worst part hadn't even happened yet. Their children would see the videos eventually. Friends at school might talk about it. Neighbors might whisper. The embarrassment would ripple outward in ways that couldn't be controlled. Across the room, Kody was still pacing. His energy had shifted from anger to something else. Frustration. Restlessness. Occasionally, he picked up his phone, scrolling through messages and comments. Then he would slam it back down again. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "They're acting like I committed some crime." Robyn didn't respond immediately. She was trying to choose her words carefully, because the truth was difficult to say out loud. Eventually, she spoke quietly. "It's not just the car, Kody." He looked at her. "What do you mean?" She hesitated before answering. "It's the way it happened." She gestured toward the window. In front of everyone. That reality hung heavily in the room. Because public humiliation carries a different weight than private mistakes. And this one had been captured from every angle. Across social media, the internet continued turning the moment into entertainment. Late-night talk shows even began mentioning the viral clip. Entertainment commentators debated whether the footage might appear in a future season of the show. Some argued the network would never ignore such dramatic footage. Others wondered if it crossed a line into something too real. Because reality television thrives on drama. But there is a difference between scripted conflict and real financial collapse. Meanwhile, fan forums continued to buzz with speculation. People debated the bigger implications. If Kody couldn't keep up with car payments, what about the land at Coyote Pass? What about mortgages? What about other loans? The repossession had opened a door to questions that had never been asked so loudly before. Even some longtime viewers admitted they felt conflicted. They had watched the Brown family for years, seen the arguments, the separations, the shifting relationships. But watching a man lose something publicly in real life felt different from watching a staged storyline. One fan wrote in a discussion thread, "Reality TV suddenly became real reality." Another replied, "And it's not funny anymore." Back in the Flagstaff house, the evening grew quieter. Kody finally stopped pacing. He sat down heavily in a chair, staring at the floor. For the first time all day, the anger seemed to drain away. What replaced it was something harder to face. Reality. The car was gone. The videos were everywhere. And the story was no longer under his control. Outside, the neighborhood had returned to its usual calm. Sprinklers watered lawns. Dogs barked occasionally in the distance. The same peaceful setting where the day had begun. But for Kody Brown, the calm felt different now. Because the tow truck had taken more than just a vehicle that morning. It had taken the illusion that everything was still under control. And somewhere deep down, he was beginning to realize something else. The car might have been the first thing to go, but it might not be the last. By the next morning, the situation had grown far bigger than anyone in the Brown family expected. What began as a viral neighborhood video had officially crossed into national news. Entertainment websites were the first to amplify the story. Blog headlines appeared across the internet overnight. Sister Wives star Kody Brown's car repossessed in front of neighbors. Viral video shows reality TV patriarch in public meltdown. But the story didn't stop there. Soon, television entertainment shows began discussing the clip. Short segments appeared on morning programs, where hosts replayed the viral footage while offering commentary. Some presenters tried to treat it lightly. Others looked genuinely uncomfortable. Because the moment felt different from the usual reality TV drama. This wasn't an argument filmed for ratings. This was real life. And real consequences. Clips from the video were now appearing on screens across the country. Millions more viewers were discovering the story for the first time. And every new audience brought another wave of reactions. Online, the memes continued multiplying. One viral edit showed the tow truck pulling the car away while dramatic movie music played in the background. Another placed a fake scoreboard on the video. Ex-wives, 3 Kody, 0 tow truck, 1 within hours. That meme alone had been shared tens of thousands of times. But not every reaction was pure mockery. Some longtime viewers of the family began expressing sympathy. They had watched the Brown family for years. Seen the children grow up. Seen the relationships slowly fall apart. And watching a real-life humiliation play out so publicly felt uncomfortable. One viewer wrote online, "I don't like Kody, but this is rough to watch." Another responded, "Reality TV has consequences. We forget these people are real." Still, the internet thrives on spectacle. And the spectacle was only getting bigger. Meanwhile, reporters began digging deeper. Journalists wanted answers to the obvious question. Why did the repossession happen in the first place? Some reporters started examining public records. Others reached out to financial analysts familiar with reality TV contracts. Speculation began to circulate about the Brown family's financial situation. Questions were raised about several major expenses. The land at Coyote Pass. Property taxes. Multiple home purchases over the years. Business ventures that never fully materialized. Each piece added more intrigue to the unfolding narrative. And for Kody, the pressure was building rapidly. His phone had barely stopped vibrating since the previous afternoon. Messages from acquaintances. Requests for comments from reporters. Even producers connected to the television show were reaching out. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What happened? Inside the house, the tension had grown thicker overnight. Robyn barely slept. Every time she checked her phone, the numbers had climbed again. More views. More headlines. More comments. The story wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating. Across the living room, Kody scrolled through articles on his phone with increasing frustration. Every headline seemed exaggerated. Every article seemed to portray him in the worst possible light. Finally, he slammed the phone onto the couch. "They're twisting everything," he said angrily. Robyn looked at him carefully. What are you going to do? That question hung in the air. For a long moment, Kody didn't answer. Then he stood up. His decision had already begun forming in his mind. I'm not just going to sit here and let people destroy me, he said. He picked up his phone again, opened his social media account, and began typing. Within minutes, a new post appeared online. It read, "People love spreading rumors without knowing the truth. The situation with my vehicle is being handled privately. The internet should stop pretending it knows my life." The message was short, defensive, and it immediately caught attention. Screenshots of the post began circulating across social media. But instead of calming the situation, it poured gasoline on the fire. Critics responded instantly. One viral reply read, "The tow truck knew your life pretty well." Another user wrote, "If it was private, maybe don't scream about it in the driveway." Within minutes, the comment section filled with thousands of responses. Some angry, some mocking, some simply curious. But the overwhelming result was clear. Kody's attempt to control the narrative had failed. And now the story had a second act. Because the internet loves conflict. And a public response only created more drama to analyze. Meanwhile, entertainment reporters noticed the post as well. New headlines appeared. Kody Brown responds after viral repossession video. Sister Wives star speaks out amid internet backlash. Each article pushed the story further into the public eye. The cycle continued. Video. Reaction. Response. More reaction. It was the perfect formula for viral attention. And through it all, one uncomfortable truth remained. The repossessed car had become a symbol of something fans had suspected for years. The slow unraveling of the Brown family empire. For over a decade, viewers had watched the family present an image of unity. For wives, one husband, one complicated but functional household. But that image had already cracked. Christine had left. Janelle had separated. Mary had moved on emotionally. Now the financial cracks were appearing too. And fans were beginning to ask a much bigger question. If the car had been repossessed, what else might be next? Inside the quiet house in Flagstaff, Kody sat back down on the couch. His phone buzzed again. Another notification. Another article. Another wave of attention he couldn't stop. For years, reality television had given him control over his public story. Producers edited scenes. Episodes shaped narratives. But now the story was being written by the internet. And the internet doesn't follow scripts. Robyn looked at him across the room. "You didn't make it better," she said softly. Kody didn't respond. Because deep down, he was beginning to realize something difficult. The tow truck had taken the car. But the internet had taken something else. His image. And once an image begins collapsing in public, it's very hard to rebuild. As the viral video continued spreading across the internet, another group of people began paying very close attention. The network. Producers connected to the long-running reality show had been watching the situation unfold from the moment the clip first appeared online. At first, it was just another internet rumor. Reality television stars often trend for dramatic reasons. Arguments, breakups, social media feuds. But this time felt different. Because the footage looked raw, unfiltered. There were no cameras from a production crew. No staged dialogue. No edited storyline. Just a driveway, a tow truck, and a very real moment of public humiliation. Inside the production offices, conversations quickly began. Some producers believed the footage could become one of the most talked about moments in the show's history. Others were more cautious. Because the scene didn't feel like entertainment. It felt like something far more personal. Still, the reality TV industry runs on one powerful principle. If the audience is watching, the story matters. And the audience was definitely watching. Ratings analysts began tracking online engagement. Millions of views. Thousands of articles. Endless discussion across social media platforms. In the modern television world, viral attention often translates directly into viewer interest, which meant the situation had suddenly become a major topic behind the scenes. Some insiders even began discussing the possibility of referencing the incident in future episodes, not necessarily showing the viral clip itself. but addressing the financial pressure surrounding the family. Because whether Kody liked it or not, the narrative had shifted. For years, the show told the story of a complicated but functioning plural family. Now, the story looked very different. One wife had left, then another, then another. The family structure had collapsed piece by piece. And now the financial cracks were becoming visible too. For longtime viewers, the repossession video felt symbolic. Not just the loss of a car, but the collapse of the carefully constructed image that had once defined the Brown family. Meanwhile, inside the Flagstaff house, the mood had grown unusually quiet. The frenzy of the previous day had finally slowed. The internet was still buzzing, but the initial shock had passed. Kody sat alone in the living room late that night. The lights were dim. His phone rested on the table beside him. For the first time in hours, it wasn't buzzing with notifications. The silence gave him something he hadn't had all day. Time to think. He leaned back in the chair and stared toward the window. Outside, the neighborhood looked peaceful, calm, ordinary. It was hard to believe that just a day earlier, cameras and phones had been pointed at his driveway, capturing a moment that now existed permanently online. Robyn eventually walked into the room. She sat down across from him quietly. Neither of them spoke at first. Finally, she broke the silence. "People will move on," she said softly. Kody nodded slightly. Maybe they would. The internet is famous for short attention spans. Today's viral moment often disappears when tomorrow's drama arrives. But some things don't fade quite so easily, especially when they reveal deeper truths. Because the repossessed car had forced many fans to confront something uncomfortable. For years, the Brown family had presented themselves as an example of strength through unity. A large, unconventional household working together. But as the years passed, the unity had fractured. Relationships fell apart. Trust eroded. And now the financial structure that once supported the family seemed increasingly fragile. In many ways, the tow truck had simply exposed what had been building for a long time. Reality. The same reality that eventually reaches every family, every relationship, every public image. And reality doesn't care about television narratives or carefully managed appearances. It simply arrives. Sometimes quietly, and sometimes, like that morning in Flagstaff, with a tow truck and a crowd of neighbors holding up their phones. Across the internet, people would continue debating the moment for weeks. Some would laugh. Some would criticize. Others would reflect on how quickly fame can change. But for Kody Brown, the lesson was far more personal. Because long after the memes disappear, long after the headlines fade, the consequences of real decisions remain. The car was gone. The video was permanent. And the future of the Brown family story was more uncertain than ever. In the end, the moment that went viral wasn't just about a repossession. It was about something deeper. A reminder that behind every reality show, behind every carefully edited episode, there are real lives unfolding. And sometimes, the most dramatic scenes are the ones no camera crew ever planned to film.